The concept of a human soul is quite intriguing. I always like to quote Aristotle when bringing this up: the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And while this is not the exact phrasing, the point is, there is something about humanity as a whole that is a bit strange, at least concerning our own reckoning. Are we truly just our minds, or could a soul possibly exist within? Arguably impossible to tell with our current tech level, and yeah, it would really be based on that, because if the soul is energy, then we should be able to detect it. Anyhow, this concept relates to today's episode quite well. In the events of Dawn of the Beast, well, this is just an absolute clusterfuck. As a group of college students, allegedly college students, head to the woods up in a cabin, they soon begin to realize that they are being watched by something. And that something turns out to be multiple somethings. As they start getting picked off one by one and hallucinating, it becomes kind of a question of what is out there is actually very real, which isn't a question, it's a statement. So in today's episode, I don't even want to spoil what's going on, so we're just gonna go ahead and get into it. This movie was insane. We kick off our story with Bigfoot. You know what they say about big feet: imminent Wendigo attack. Now, it looks like I just spoiled it for literally everyone in the first few seconds. See, you didn't even have to wait that long. Thanks for watching. Looks like between September 4th through October 2nd of each year, people see weird stuff and unexplainable things in the woods, and last year, actually around 54 people would go missing. Given we have officially entered the Burr months as of writing this, it is spooky season. Also, my voice cracked. I don't know what's up with that, so let's get it, I guess, as the kids say. Not kids, probably just gens. I don't fucking know. Anyways. And they alleged this dead month, as they call it, never has the missing people issues solved. Time to burn down the entire forest and then just start over. As we see a woman wearing a necklace getting ready, Bro is passed out on the couch saying, "Oh, someone must have worn me out." Yes, people can occasionally be exhausting. I too am exhausted. The necklace is allegedly fancy, I guess. I don't know. It really doesn't look that fancy to me. Also, by getting ready, I mean she was really just gonna go put on a shirt. As Bro heads outside to smoke, he begins to hear gravel crunching. You're not supposed to eat that. Picking his nose, the light on the side of the house then goes out. Also, you're not supposed to check that out. When you see this crap, you just go back inside. Not listening to Roanoke, because who would do that? He then looks out into the tree line and sees something absolutely horrifying. Eyes are out there in the distance with antlers. They immediately drop, and brother, stop walking towards that. As the light remained on, he then hears something around the house as the trash cans are knocked over. Grabbing a flashlight, he then tells his girly friend to stay inside, as she didn't hear any of that, I guess, and in the window, a creepy McCreepster is watching. So, straight up, maybe it's just most of humanity because, you know, what is most personal is most universal, but I'm just gonna stay inside and probably lock the door. I'm not gonna go check out the creepy yellow glowing eyes in the distance with antlers just levitating there. What in the name of all that is holy? Heading outside, calling out to him, she then sees the same eyes and antlers in the woods. Saying hello, stop talking to it. Get the salt and iron. That is pretty much what you need to be doing. Meanwhile, Mr. Curious over here continues searching for that horrible thing, as then he finds a tarp. Thinking something must be underneath it, luckily it's just a bunch of firewood, as his flashlight then goes out. Hearing footsteps, Bro then gets straight up grabbed as the girlfriend is locked in a staring match with that thing in the woods. Everett is his name, as then he finds his girlfriend and she says it found her and it's inside her. Okay. As then she's dragged off. Well, bro, it looks like you just got your origin story to commit your life to hunting this thing down and seeking revenge. Because let's be honest here, man hunting down cryptid abominations due to some tragic backstory is absolutely the way. What is it? Where the Lord allows monsters, man will be raised to fight them. Humanity number one. This is our planet. Get off it. As then we get Dawn of the Beast. As a distant bell rings, it's been almost 10 years as we pan over the forest. A group comes in a store as Mr. Greasy over here looks at them. Bro's apparently going through a breakup currently as Taylor doesn't want to talk to him anymore. I've actually talked to a few Taylors in my day. Once it's done, they don't want to talk to you anymore. It's better just to block them and move on. A guy in the back of the car gets a call as this guy cannot let go of work. Remember, work is good, but every once in a while you just kind of need to take a look around and realize there's more to life than just work. Like watching my videos, for instance. That is what I'm referencing here is, you know, what you should be doing with your life. Turn on that binge playlist and just let it ride. Also, you should check out Roanoke Tales 2 as I'm consistently uploading over there. Anyhow, it's not called Roanoke Tales 2. Like, it's just TOO. Go look up Roanoke Tales. Anyways, he's into some chick named Isabel, as he's been with her for over 2 months. Now, is Isabel into him after dating 2 months? No. Breakup imminent unless something completely unforeseen happens. So back in the store, the clerk mentions how during the dead month, nobody likes to come out this way. Apparently everybody in the world knows about this area, I guess. Anyways, they make a few jokes about running into Sasquatch as Mr. Greasy Sr. then walks in saying, "The beast is out there. And if it knows you're at the cabin, it will come for you." Completely ignoring that and then start buying some stuff as they head out towards the cabin for the evening. It's Friday, September 30th. Looks like the group here is there with their professor. I cannot imagine a better time than that. Isabel then tells Mr. Nice Guy over here to put on khakis for the evening for some reason as he leans in to kiss her. So always remember something, and this is just Papa Roanoke telling you, important info. If it's not a hell yeah, then it's a hell no. If your partner of 2 months is not like mega jazzed to be with you and taking pretty much every chance to either kiss you or maintain some form of physical contact in some way, again, this is just my personal take, obviously, because I rank physical touch at the top, you gotta start examining why they are there in the first place. Yes, I get it. Some people are just less affectionate than others. That's fine. But leaning in and getting snubbed after just 2 months together? Whoa. That does not bode well for the future. Panning over the woods, Professor Psycho here is there with the group as they are looking for evidence of Bigfoot. Mr. Nice Guy tells a joke to his friend, and he also bird watches. I'm not knocking hobbies. My current hobby is getting torn apart by terminids and helldivers too, so bird watching seems a little more peaceful. His girlfriend Isabel leaves him behind like a Noxuna moon. If you got that reference, good for you, because I'm sure this is gonna work well. It definitely worked out well for the mummy. So she's giving all the signs that she's really just not that into him. As real question, again, I get like physical attraction, but why would you even want to be with someone who doesn't want to like jump you when they see you? Seems like a great way to get old and just resent who you're with. So leaving the trail almost immediately because Bigfoot doesn't do trails, a hunter is just squatting over what looks like a set of tracks. Mr. Eye Patch here is just weirdly aggressive to this woman as she asks what he is doing, and then he counters with, "Oh, well, where are you staying?" "Oh, where am I staying? Well, there's a sheriff's convention in town this year, so me and about 20 cops and their wives or husbands rented out a large cabin and everybody is armed." That is the answer you want to give for that. Like, if anybody ever asks you, "Where are you staying?" Bro, pound sand. You don't need to know where I'm staying. But all right then. So my question is, could he be any more weird? No. I feel like, have you ever interacted with someone that just gives you that gut feeling? Again, you know what? We're gonna launch into this. I'm hard launching it. So essentially, that gut feeling that you have, it's based on mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are in certain areas of the brain that actually activate during social situations in humans. And it's basically your brain looking for minute changes in the facial patterns of people. So you can basically, it kind of helps you determine possibly when somebody is lying, which is why you get that weird gut instinct. So again, if you have a gut instinct about somebody, that is your brain detecting something that it's like, hey, this looks off. So usually just go with it. Now, it's not right 100% of the time, but it's definitely worth acknowledging that you have it, because it usually means somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes or they're lying to you about something. Doesn't mean you're right 100% of the time. Things like trauma can affect this, but the point is that those mirror neurons are always working in the background looking for patterns. Back in the day, like, they would have the purpose of, let's say like you were scanning the savannah because you're like, hey, I'm gonna go find some food or something, and you may not have noticed the lion's eyes looking at you through the bush, but your mirror neurons notice a pattern, and so they reacted as such to make you feel uneasy and be like, am I being watched right now? That's basically what your mirror neurons are for. And also, there is this concept that possibly some form of telepathy may be developing because of mirror neurons, but take that with a grain of salt. That's not confirmed, and this is a science-based channel. It's kind of also like science fiction based, I suppose, so it's cool to talk about, but I have several videos that have discussed that. Anyways, we're gonna move on. So I'll say, also, this guy's got a pretty sick scar over his eye, at least like one cool point for that. So walking into a clearing, Mr. Handsome here then steps in cow dung as he falls and finds a skeleton. They say they need to report this, but Sasquatch Rock over here says not to report it. He's like, oh, it takes 10 to 12 years to decompose, so this is really old. Nobody's even missing them. Yeah, if they're in the ground, it takes that long. On the surface, it does not take near as long exposed to the elements and small animals. You're talking like maybe like weeks. That's about it, because they're in dry grass in the sun, completely exposed. So they just all sort of agree with this and then leave it alone, which is absolutely bizarre. As in, Isabel over here literally robs a body. What in the world? So back in the woods, Mr. Nice Guy continues to look through the area, I guess trying to spot a titmouse or something, which is a real bird, by the way. But then he sees something moving, but only catches a glimpse. Professor Psycho then says maybe he saw something else. A Bigfoot, perhaps? Probably not. Back at the cabin, they then talk about Eye Patch Man and how that was as pleasant as having an enema. As then lighting the fireplace, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, the most unrealistic thing, being in the South in September, nobody's lighting a fire. It's still too hot down here. Mr. Nice Guy then sits next to Isabel. His body language is exquisite. She then leaves to go do a work call, as she claims, as brother, it might be time to just go find a girl, I don't know, who looks for rocks or something and actually wants to be around you. Remember, hot chicks are great. Don't get me wrong. But if they don't like you, what's the point? Just find somebody who likes you. That's gonna fulfill you way more in life. So Sasquatch Rock and Professor Psycho are drinking in the kitchen, talking about the sightings in the areas. Moving topics over to his thesis, he then tries to tell him about the body as Professor Psycho just sort of bails mid-conversation. You can get up and leave this topic. What are you doing? Does anybody here have any level of social ability? Professor Psycho then heads outside to talk to Isabel, asking to go with her as something unfortunate has come up. Oh wait, is this extracurricular study? Anyways, evidently it is Professor Psycho's wedding anniversary, and bro just happened to forget that. Marriage seems to be going well. Meanwhile, Mr. Nice Guy then finds the Necronomicon, which literally says do not read. Ignoring that because he can't read, he then starts reading the Necronomicon. Classic rookie mistake. We've all been there. As he looks through, he sees the necklace and then writing in the book that gets worse and worse as time goes on. As Burnett Roots then goes to take a shower, Mr. Handsome then says he has to pee literally as soon as she gets in there. Also, this house has 8 bedrooms, we come to find out. Why is there only 1 bathroom? Also, even more important than that, bro, you're at a cabin. Just go pee off the deck or something. That is the way. Keeps the bears actually away due to the testosterone in your pee, which, fun fact, this is just let's say you're going and, I don't know, camping with a group of people, or maybe it's just you and your girlfriend or whatever, or you're the girlfriend and your boyfriend, I don't care. Whatever you do, the point is that if you can, let's say you have a coyote issue or something like that, if the male of the group goes and pees around the camp, the testosterone in it will keep away coyotes. Bears, remains to be seen, but it doesn't work, with women because there's not enough testosterone in their pee to keep away the coyotes. In fact, I can't remember. It might actually attract coyotes. Yeah. So I guess, I always go and, okay, this is kind of weird, but if you go and you're camping, right? You're drinking beer, you're having a good time. I like to go and pee around the perimeter. It just keeps away the bears. Don't know how weird a statement that was, but as she gets the shower ready, the window has opened as Eye Patch apparently broke in and then just straight up chloroforms her. In the car, Isabel and Professor Psycho are driving along as Isabel sees a woman, thinking she did, as then she continues on. I just want to point out, this is a Bright's headlights scenario. Using low beams, that's just crazy. So as Professor Psycho says her name, she then turns and sees the woman from earlier in the car with her. Crashing it immediately, something skitters by, which is the worst kind of thing, as humans are hardwired to react to things that skitter. Just ask Damon Baird, he knows what's up. And also, he was right. They never give the smart guy the promotion, they always give it to a jackass. So as she looks over, something then starts attacking as it grabs the professor and pulls him out. I can't be sure, but I believe it did put a tentacle mouth thing through his neck. In the process, Isabel then backs up, losing sight of the car as she's hallucinating, as then she sees the eyes. Turning, she spots a woman and then is levitated and appears to have her neck broken. Ouchies. Well, maybe for half. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna look that up. Does breaking your neck hurt? Okay, so after looking it up, garden variety words of intense burning and extreme pain come up. So yes, it is painful. My advice to you, don't break your neck. Anyhow, back at the cabin, Mr. Nice Guy, I think wants to go do some night running as he opens up the door but sees something. Grabbing man's answer to the Wendigo menace, he then goes to take a leak. Guess he's not night running. Also, what is with people walking way out into the woods to pee? Do you have a shy bladder or something? Just pee off the deck. Hearing something growl, well, hey, would you look at that? Bigfoot. Getting grabbed and pulled off, he's then yeeted into a tree. Okay, so Mr. Handsome heard this. I got him totally confused with Mr. Nice Guy. Anyways, I suppose it was Mr. Nice Guy who got yeeted. Anyhow, we will know in a few minutes. It is now the next day. Shower scene woman then wakes up in the bed of a truck with tape over her mouth and hands. Stealing her cigarettes, nobody is concerned yet that she disappeared from the shower. She went in and never came back out. This appears to be bro from the beginning of the movie. He then tells her that she's bait for whatever he's hunting, which apparently is a Bigfoot. She reasons with him about the fingerprints and DNA, as then he closes the back of the truck. Yeah, that'll hold her. Back at the cabin, Mr. Handsome then hears a knock on the door as Isabel has returned. Sasquatch Rock then comes out seeing her, but she's acting rather strangely. She remembers nothing, and then they asked what happened. Well, she says she remembered nothing. So, anyways, she says Professor Psycho is dead. Okay, so she remembers something. Out in the woods, they then follow Isabel, calling out for the Professor Psycho as she's smiling. Yeah, no thanks. As they walk, they find Mr. Nice Guy under a bunch of sticks. You want to know what happened to him with Sasquatch. Isabel then points to the hill as Professor Psycho has been impaled through his brainstem, which, okay, she says she knows nothing, and yet she just led them directly to a body? Okay. So back at the cabin, and then talk about what happened. Mr. Nice Guy informs them that it was, in fact, a Sasquatch. Opening up the Necronomicon again, they then talk about how it's a Wendigo. What is a Wendigo? Well, it's a creature that preys on the selfish and greedy. When the spirit finds you, it invades your body. They got a Bigfoot situation and a Wendigo situation. Or maybe a Wendigo situation disguised as a Bigfoot situation. Or maybe the force is apparently just a monster mash and everybody is screwed. Isabel then starts tripping, saying that they are coming as Shower Scene Girl and Eye Patch walk through a field towards a tree. He's using her as bait, as then she punches him and tries to escape, as then he just ties her to said tree. Seeing the last person who was bait, she then calls out for help, but they are apparently way out there. Back at the cabin, Isabel is having nightmares as she sees the eyes in her room. Flipping on the light, it's gone now as it's October 1st, which means real spooky, scary skeleton hours. The lights then flip off as then, in the dark, she sees the eyes again. A shadow is over in the corner as Alexa then starts talking. Alexa, shut up! Also, did your Alexa go off? And in the spirit of Alexa, she's talking about killing and consuming the blood and flesh of others. Mine does this all the time. I have no idea what's wrong with her. Also, is it not normal to see eyes in your backyard at night heading up towards the top of a mountain? I'm pretty sure it's fine. Turning on the camera, Isabel can see herself as then she sees something behind her. Turning around, she begins laughing at herself, which is a normal Friday night after a few beers for me, as the last hour has passed by and she has no idea what just happened. Again, average Friday night. So ignoring that, she decides to go back to sleep as she hears a noise. The covers get pulled down as, there he is, the Wendigo spirit. Back out at the tree line, Eye Patch Man then lines up the shot and waits for Sasquatch. Being a terrible hunter though, he ignores the very clear sounds of footsteps behind him as he shines a super underpowered flashlight back there. Continuing to watch, oh, well, apparently the entire Wendigang now shows up and attacks him. How did they even survive for this long? Inquiring minds would wish to know. I mean, specifically, how did he survive for this long? One of the creatures then starts making its way towards Shower Scene Girl as she's able to free herself and finds Eye Patch Man has been turned into double Eye Patch Man. Hiding behind a tree, that thing comes up probably knowing where she is, as then she just stands behind there holding her breath. Looking around, it decides to say, nah, never mind, as then she takes off. So, is like Sasquatch beefing with these things since like they're all there together? Like, what's the deal here? This appears to be a primate on cryptid violence situation, and we too are primates, and so is Sasquatch. So why then can humans be possessed? Back at the cabin, Sasquatch Rock and Mr. Handsome then hear a yell from Isabel's room, and running in, they can't find her immediately as she's apparently hiding up on the wardrobe. Mr. Handsome didn't even look before leaving the room, like, what if she just fell on the other side of the bed, like on the side there that you can't see? And trapping Sasquatch Rock, she begins convulsing, saying she doesn't know how this is happening. And this is why you don't read from the Necronomicon. Contorting, her bones begin cracking and blood vessels appear, having issues. Isabel then comes back too, as she talks to him and saying, Sasquatch Rock, I don't know if we can fix this. As then he's like, no, we can definitely fix this. How can you fix this? Anyways, overtaken by the unholy spirit, she attacks Sasquatch Rock. Mr. Nice Guy is still in the cabin, not hearing any of this, as the Wendigang is outside of the building. Mr. Handsome then heads out back, completely forgetting about Isabel, as Mr. Handsome then looks outside and sees, well, apparently they are under siege by these things. Hearing his name, he then turns as Isabel is standing there, and then she attacks him. Shower Scene Girl then gives Mr. Nice Guy a shovel downstairs, as he says he can't find Isabel. Well, she's currently tearing Mr. Handsome limb from limb, I imagine. Shower Scene Girl then gives Mr. Nice Guy 5 minutes to vibe check the cabin before they leave. This is like a 2-minute process if I'm being completely honest with you. I mean, it's not that big of a place, so finding Isabel snacking on her manwich, she now wants to finally make money moves on Mr. Nice Guy. Bit late, but isn't it how that always is at the end? Anyhow, the Wendigang is in the cabin at this point, checking the beds and running around as Mr. Nice Guy is then pulled into the closet by Shower Scene Girl. One begins looking at the closet door as it hears a thud and leaves to go check on that. Another then shows up looking interested, but doesn't go with, like, opening the door for some reason. Okay, so their brains aren't that great. This is good news. Exiting the closet, they then go to make their escape out of the monster house. Opening the front door, the lock is loud as all get out as Mr. Nice Guy for some reason drops his shovel like a complete idiot, as Shower Scene Girl then abandons the objective because Mr. Nice Guy thinks it's a better idea to run further into the house. Yeah, good luck there, buddy. Finding Sasquatch Rock being eaten, he makes his way quietly around that, as again, he makes a noise because he runs into something, but he gets the door shut just in time. Bailing through the window, Shower Scene Girl then finds him, as they both bail out together into the woods. Checking double eye patch, Mr. Nice Guy then sees eyes in the distance. Stop looking at that thing. And unfortunately for all involved, the Wendigo can possess already expired bodies. As they try to figure out when to run, they both get grabbed. A shower scene girl gets her arm literally ripped off. Holy Lord, ow. Like that literally came off like tissue paper. Do you know what kind of force that would take? Well, I'm here to tell you. So first things first, this level of pulling force would be absolutely insane. A human body is not capable of this, for the most part. When it comes to pulling off a completely undamaged and just correctly attached arm. I mean, if you could get maybe like Andre the Giant to rip off a toddler's arm, maybe, but gripping the humerus bone, that would at least negate the elbow being the fail point, because that would most definitely tear off first due to the fact it's less stabilized than the shoulder and has less connective tissue. The shoulder is somewhat comparable to the femur and pelvis connection, at least, again, somewhat. It is incredibly bolstered given this level of interaction that the arm will have to engage with, along with that, possibly like what your body will have to deal with as far as pulling you up and over things, as well as holding on to things. Like for reference, given the tensile strength of muscle, tendons, and ligaments of the human shoulder, it is suggested that it would take around 30 to 50 megapascals to actually tear it off. This is around 5,800 pounds per square inch, with the average human shoulder being evidently around 16 inches. In terms of diameter, that allegedly puts us around 92,800 pounds being applied before failure actually happens, or roughly 42,093 kilograms in heathen units. That is an absolutely insane amount of weight. But we have all seen the videos online of people getting injured. They are burned into our brains. Typically, like drastically quick movements can cause a separation much earlier in these instances. But the point of all this is the human arm is not just loosely attached. To have it pulled off that easily implies these things are ridiculously strong. Like I don't know. If it was grabbing your humerus, I feel like your bicep would just deglove first. Anyways, it wouldn't really last that long though. With a tear like this, you're actually going to sever the axillary artery located in the shoulder, and once that is gone, you only have really a few seconds before you just completely run out of blood. So she bleeds out rapidly as the Wendigang all watches from the distance. Mr. Nice Guy then spots the Wendigo as well, as then he yells at the creatures, real caveman stuff in a final stand. Like sometimes if that's all you got, hey, you know what? Why not do the final stand? So as he yells with his shovel, oh great, Sasquatch is here. Walking past Mr. Night. Yo, hold up. Is this thing about to do what I think it's about to do? This is what I've been waiting for. I don't know, the Charlie voice critical thing. Yeah, baby, this is what we've been waiting for. It squares up with the Wendigang as hell yeah, it goes full Helldivers, super Helldive mode on these things. And he's just straight up wrecking face. Also, the song that he's wrecking face to, it's pretty good. So as the Wendigo watches in the distance, having gotten its tail whooped, or at least its minions being destroyed, it then nopes out of there. This actually implies something about the human brain, or potentially even a soul. So Mr. Nice Guy makes it to the car as Isabel is on the car and she starts attacking him. Following him under the truck, he then jumps into the back, which, why you wouldn't just get back into the driver's seat and run over her? It's beyond me. Instead, he cowers like a little baby man, as then he sees gas and matches and then lights her on fire, which according to the lore is in fact how you're supposed to get rid of a Wendigo. Getting back in his new truck, he then runs her over, as then he sits there and turns off the truck as something is actively on fire underneath it. Bro, what? Okay, so hearing footsteps approach, Sasquatch then walks by as Mr. Nice Guy has the truck stall. See, what happened was, you idiot, after you ran her over, you sat there and your fuel line got burned. Like, the truck is trying to start. It's got a strong starter, so which means it's not an electrical issue. You just let it burn through your fuel line. Very smart. So getting out of the truck then explodes because his fuel line was burned, as then the alarm goes off. So now you get to walk down the road in your underwear covered in blood. I'm sure someone will be along shortly to help you with that. So he grabs the shovel as Eye Patch Man then shows up as he tries to talk to Mr. Nice Guy and how he kept coming there. He then begins discussing the spirit of flesh and how the Wendigo knows him now, so it's too late. You should have researched them a little better on how to kill them, to be honest with you. He then tells Mr. Nice Guy to run and then starts taunting him, which, nah brother, get shoveled. Taking off his head, that pretty much solves that problem. So as Mr. Not So Nice Guy then limps off, Eye Patch Man keeps singing as Not So Nice Guy then hears some birds. And as he does, it appears as though he's made it outside the range of the Wendigo, which is not possible technically speaking, as then a Jeep shows up. Luckily, all the impossible things are happening, and it just so happened the Jeep was going downhill as it already threw a rod through the engine the second it started up. Man, Jeeps are crap. Anyways, rise above. Focus on Toyota supremacy. Mr. Greasy Sr. has made the scene as Not So Nice Guy hops in. Yeah, that's gonna ruin the upholstery. He says dead month, am I right? Anyways, not so nice guy's not really laughing about the situation. I believe nobody would engage in this joke at this point. You're just gonna need a lot of therapy for this little adventure, which means a therapist, once you mention Bigfoot wrecking a bunch of Wendigos, especially the battle that happened, you're probably just gonna be committed. Anyhow, thus concludes Dawn of the Beast. Welcome to the science portion. The timestamp should be up there on this time, otherwise you just stumbled across it again, which, good work. So, bit of a weird situation we have here with this entire thing. First, it appears as though humans are 100% able to be possessed by the Wendigo. Also, I don't really know if some people call it Wendigo, but you get the point. However, with another primate on the scene not dealing with the same issue, what are we really looking at here? So clearly, there needs to be a discussion as to what Wendigos actually are. Then we need to discuss where Bigfoot may have actually originated before finally get into the potential biology of this, because when are there ever two Freaky Friday things in town at the same time? It just seems highly unlikely. So let's start from the beginning. Where does the Wendigo actually come from? The reality is that the antlered thing that you see on my channel logo for Roanoke Tales, which you should check out, isn't really even technically a Wendigo. The Wendigo itself is a horrific creature, more like a spirit than an actual living being, depending on who you ask. It seems to have originated within the Algonquin-speaking cultures of North America back in the day. Back then, food was not as plentiful as it is now, and there's really no programs designated to help anyone if they couldn't afford to eat. You either survived by hunting or farming, and if for some reason both of these things got wrecked, it really could lead to a serious threat of famine. It's kind of hard to imagine now if, North America would be this way, I guess, because, food is just so prevalent, but, still to this day, it's not uncommon for people to go hungry. This also still happens in plenty of other places across the planet. Anyhow, so without food, as you may have guessed, you're totally boned, but then the hunger would set in. Hunger at first is pretty sharp. The hunger pangs, the aggression levels, everything feeling off, it all begins the same way. Just a few missed meals. I don't know if you've ever been truly hungry or not, like haven't eaten in days hungry, but it is an entirely different experience. I think everybody should probably experience at least once in their life. Your blood sugar is the first to drop, obviously, as you will kind of feel satiated from your last meal, but maybe just a little hungry after a few hours. Then, after those few hours go by, and with them continuing to tick on, eventually your body will begin releasing the hunger hormone known as ghrelin. As this ramps up, this will travel to specifically the hypothalamus, which will be important later. This is the hunger control area of the brain. As the hunger increases, your hypothalamus will eventually stop telling you that you're hungry, but your amygdala will start becoming more sensitive. This is as designed, as it will increase aggression levels and agitation, hopefully in a bid to spur you to go find some food, or go fight a short-faced bear and, eat its eyeballs or something. Or maybe just begin taking food from others out of anger. Eventually, however, your body will turn to the fat stores for energy. Entering ketosis, your body will break down fat reserves in order to create ketones as energy sources. Fat stores do not last forever, though. Eventually, your body then turns to muscle protein in order to just not die. It is at this point that cognitively, a shift will begin to take hold. The hypothalamus does more than just regulate hunger. It also regulates disgust. As you reach a state of hunger and starvation, the likes of which your body has never known, or at least hopefully has never known, an idea would begin to form that naturally should be absolutely abhorrent to you, but in desperate times, desperate measures have to be taken. Eventually, if you're starving for long enough, that likely means others in the group are starving as well. Someone is going to drop, or what typically happens, draws a short straw and is dropped. It is at this point that the hypothalamus has been so downregulated and your body is screaming for food that it becomes incredibly natural, albeit due to human sociability horrendous, to engage in the act of cannibalism. All throughout human history have been stories of people down bad enough to engage in this practice. The Donner Party, for instance, was a group that was going through the mountains during the winter that ended up getting stuck with no food around at all, as they resorted to first eating the hide floors in their tents and cabins, but eventually they started turning on individuals who kind of already either met their end or were near it in order to just stay alive. The Algonquin-speaking people ended up personifying this desperate survival mechanism by calling it the Wendigo, essentially cannibalism given a spirit. Traditionally, they are depicted as gaunt creatures who are extremely emaciated, sometimes even just skeletons that have grown in height and are never actually satiated concerning their hunger. They eat everything, and it's all based on human greed, or as some would put it, survival. As a result, those that gave into cannibalism are extremely susceptible to being possessed by the Wendigo spirit to become an actual Wendigo. But the whole antlers thing appears to be like a recent addition. It actually has already been changed before when Europeans came over with their own forms of cryptids, and the Wendigo ended up kind of looking more like a werewolf for a while. The point is, it's kind of more of a spirit, and after possession, you become gaunt, your mind is lost to a more feral, animalistic state, and overall, you're just kind of not a fun guy to hang out with anymore. And this is interesting concerning this movie, as to me, it seems to show the possibility of something biological going on. Which brings us around to Bigfoot. Contender 2 in the weekend monster mash we got going on in the woods. If you have seen my episode over the Yeti, then this may sound somewhat familiar to a degree, but even if you did, maybe you just need a refresher, and I think this might be something else. The question is, where did Bigfoot come from, and why is it in North America in the first place? The reality is the standard accepted model for the most part, except for like the human skull that was allegedly 300,000 years old in a cave in Greece, is that humanity originated out of Africa. However, we were not the only primates to come out of this continent. Back in the day, it appears that several apes pushed out of Africa towards the rest of the world. The reason is likely because it was just available, but also changing landscapes, climates, and environments. As we know, the Sahara Desert isn't always a desert, which, by the way, desert has one S because you want less of it. Desert has two S's because you want more of it. But due to the wobbles in Earth's rotation, weather patterns change, which eventually actually leads to the desert becoming more greener, at least for a few thousand years, like I think around 21,000 years actually, and what are known as Milankovitch cycles. In fact, we only missed it by about 5,000 years the last time Africa was a savanna. Or not Africa, but the Sahara was actually like a whole savanna plain, I guess. Anyhow, this greening of the desert likely invites in many different species who specialize in this savanna climate as they continue to adapt and may move further north, south, east, or west, wherever they really want to go. But as fate would have it, inevitably a shift begins to happen. It may happen maybe internal to the Sahara at first and then move towards the coast, but everything begins drying up. If you were in the northern part of the Sahara, you may actually move further north to find water, as moving south would be a death sentence given how dry it is. If you're in the south, you might just go back to the Congo because you're like, it's kind of crappy up here. This in turn would push many species actually to the Middle East area of the planet. And over time, this cycle of savanna and then desert would end up causing many primates to actually be pushed as far as Asia in order to survive. And eventually, Homo erectus would actually push into Asia and Europe. In Europe, they would be called Neanderthals. They would become Neanderthals, and also probably in Asia, Neanderthals as well. Now, the strange thing is, when we look at this Bigfoot, he is clearly a true bipedal organism. The most closely linked thinking to this creature would likely be that it hails from Gigantopithecus, but Gigantopithecus being an ancestor to the orangutan, which is related to apes that came out of Africa, means that it would not actually be truly bipedal. So Gigantopithecus, I never walked on 2 feet. For the most part, it would grasp things, and it could do it for a little while, but the way its legs and hips and feet are structured, it's not truly bipedal. So then, how could this have happened? While I do believe Gigantopithecus could have moved out of Asia over to North America, crossing the land bridge between Russia and Alaska, I find it highly doubtful it was this creature. There does not seem to really be a reason for it to have needed to have done this. However, there is a species that does appear to just like to move into areas just because it can, apart from Homo sapiens, and that is Homo erectus. What I believe, given that this is true bipedalism, we are witnessing essentially a remaining member of the Homo erectus species that crossed the land bridge and has set up an enclave of its own in this area. There must be enough to maintain a breeding population, and the thing to note about Homo erectus is that while it had quite a range of heights from about 4'9" to 6'1", the reality is they were presumed to actually be potentially taller than that of what was like the absolute height of man, so they were taller than humans. With this in mind, if we take the average height of a male in North America being around 5'9", say you had like an offshoot of Erectus who entered North America and survived given the cooler temperatures and potentially harsher climates, as we know according to the deep sea gigantism rule, which, this is where that wretched abomination known as the anglerfish lives. Greg, pull up a picture of this thing. Don't you just want to bully it? Don't you just want to set off a nuclear explosion 2 millimeters from its face? Like, don't lie to me. You do, I do. Why haven't we done what needs to be done yet? Is humanity composed of a bunch of cowards? Hopefully not. Anyhow, righteous fury and disgust aside, it is known in colder climates animals tend to get larger, and Homo erectus would be under these same conditions. Really, putting Bigfoot at like 6'8" or 203 centimeters would not be that far-fetched. Plus, if you have ever seen the assumed musculature of these things, as in like Homo erectus, you would know they're pretty jacked and had much more hair on their bodies, but not enough to be classified as fur. but it is enough to keep them warm, but still shows some skin underneath. The point is, the Bigfoot appears to me as a textbook, just large Homo erectus that survived in North America, given the appearance of hair and the structure of its brow ridge and eyes. You gotta remember, technically speaking, humanity is the dork emoji of the primate world. We were just smart enough to know how to stomp everything that could be a threat. And also, we also straight up banged Neanderthal out of existence. Somebody was down bad back in the day. A lot of people were down bad back in the day with Neanderthal. Do you think, like, they just wouldn't talk about it? Anyways, so the stage is set, which means we have one glaring issue to discuss. How? And by that I mean, let's assume that we are dealing with a Wendigo spirit here, and now we are also dealing with Bigfoot that is beefing with the actual possessed humans turned Wendigo. The question that is probably on everyone's mind is, how is Bigfoot immune? Well, it's because he doesn't have a soul. Thanks for watching. Okay, or it could be something else entirely that we haven't discussed. Something with a more foundational reliance on actual pathophysiology. I'm a biologist with a background as a scientist, what do you expect? And for this, actually my recent video over the Kidam Cave, once again over on Roanoke Tales, could actually serve as a basis for this idea. So let's begin with the hardest pill to swallow. While Earth itself is absolutely goated, what lives within Earth is our biggest hater. Not just us, but for most animals. Given that Marburg virus appears to actually come out of Kidam Cave itself, which, I'm going full 343. I'm gonna make you consume other forms of media to understand that reference, because it totally worked out great for them, and we all love that absolute bullcrap. Oh, just read these 8 books, a discontinued comic that you can't find anywhere, and also a story I made up in my head that I never told anyone, and then only then can you understand that even though you killed the Didact allegedly in-game, we actually killed him off-screen, making Master Chief's whole struggle completely irrelevant and Cortana sacrificing herself totally dumb. Thanks, B-Rye! What a story! Like, how stupid do you really have to be at all that? Look, not you guys watching, I mean okay, hold up. Alright, and this is turning into how 343 killed Halo video. That is getting way off topic. The point past that rambling is that diseases are most definitely contained within the soils themselves as well as in caves. Now, where these people are, I actually recognize this area. This is the Appalachian Mountains, and notoriously, these mountains contained a lot of lime in them. As a result, cave systems are quite expansive in this area, and actually, if you want to know why a lot of people go missing, it's not because if you ever see your trash can knocked outside at 3 a.m., run. It's actually much more likely that you just fall into a hole where the earth just opens up. I go spelunking from time to time, and quite literally, there are holes in the middle of nowhere that if you don't see, you can fall 40 feet straight down to your death and nobody will ever find you. That's just reality, dude. Not, I don't know, a fox screaming in the woods and everybody's like, oh, it must be a 10-foot mountain. No, it's just probably a fox or a mountain lion, or no, probably not even a mountain lion. I don't even know if there's mountain lions out here. I'm pretty sure there are mountain lions out here. I've never seen one though. So from here we have to ask, well, if diseases live in soils and we have these things popping up in the same area affecting only humans but not other primates, what exactly are we dealing with? Well, as with all things concerning biology, the devil is in the details. So I'm going to make a suggestion here. I don't believe this to be a true Wendigo infection per se. First, Wendigo don't really operate in specifically just a certain month. That's the largest of these issues. While cannibalism may become more prevalent in the colder months in the Appalachian Mountains, nobody would say it's cold in September through early October. In fact, it's downright pleasant as September goes on, starting off pretty hot. In fact, I believe the high, once this video comes out, which was the high yesterday, it was 92 degrees where I'm living. So along with this, given the mountains are not well developed, this appears to be more of a foothill territory than an actual like deep in the hollers of West Virginia. As a result, we know it probably is warm, so nobody is eating their friend because they're stranded. But Roanoke, what if it's an old spirit from back in the day? Yeah, I suppose that could be possible, but we have to ask again, why just September through October? If we take a look at the weather in this area around that time, we can see typically high pressure systems will actually move into these areas of the foothills at this point, making it rather dry. Now, typically hurricanes can also push through, but given the, predictability of the dead month, as I call it, I would have to assume sporadic hurricane activity is really not at play here. But what I think is at play is a combination of things. First, the days begin to get shorter noticeably around this time. The air cools in the evening and there's less rain, making everything drier. The caves would also be drying out around this time to a degree, or at minimum have lower water levels. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I'm gonna say it. and stop tiptoeing around the topic. I believe this to straight up be an infectious disease of sorts that originates from the caves and becomes more widespread once water levels drop and the air becomes drier. This could be spread by animal, or it could just be naturally airborne. And what is there to back this up? Again, it could be that Bigfoot doesn't have a soul. Sure. And if that, only humans have souls and are capable of being afflicted with a supernatural curse. Or it could come down to just differences in the immune system. It seems to me that only humans are able to see the actual cursed spiritual form, whereas Bigfoot can see the literal physical representations in the area, which then he proceeds to go John Helldiver on. So the question is, what are we really looking at here? Of course, there may be some instances where he can see it as well. Not sure if he was squaring off with it when he possibly was looking at it, or just looking at it in the woods, because that's what, Mr. Nice Guy was looking at too. Anyways, to understand that, we need to understand a little thing called proteins. That's right. We're diving into the depths of what biologically horrifies me. Prions are absolutely necessary to the function of the human body. Prions are housed on the outside of neurons typically, and their purpose is actually not fully known at this point in time. But just know, you and I both, we have prions, because they operate, which results in us living, so they are doing something. Hailing from the PRNP gene, should there be some sort of mutation, this will actually result in misfolded prions, which is where the problems begin. So strap in for this, as it's going to require the need for 2 comorbidities. As a prion is mutated, you need to understand that there is no inherent coding in it, like the prion itself. It has no wants or needs or feeling to survive, so it's not like bacteria, it's not like a fungus, it's not like a virus. It just exists. It is unknown for, what reason it builds up, but we do know for sure that when it comes into contact with other normal prions, it will begin to change their folds as well into prions like itself. There are enzymes that are supposed to fix misfolded proteins, but the thinking is once they come into contact with these misfolded prions, they will actually break these enzymes, causing them to then go out and begin misfolding other healthy prions. To a degree, what we could be seeing is the evolution of life itself, but much like how evolution has many dead ends, this may just be a dead end. But what's interesting is, the prion is now more stable than it has ever been. As these build up, it will cause spongification within the brain, which is just brain damage, and ultimately result in the end of the person or animal that is infected. In deer, we are seeing this present itself as chronic wasting disease, which has been spotted in Alabama, so be careful of the deer meat here. It's also known as mad cow disease over in the UK, but the thinking typically is it won't actually jump species, but that's not reality because, again, mad cow disease, the reality is, while it's rare, it most definitely can spread to humans. We actually had a guy die down here as a result of eating contaminated meats, at least that's what it's assumed, because he basically died from prion disease. So the prions being a more stout fold than standard also means in their environment, they can survive exposed longer, which is what makes chronic wasting disease so insidious. If a deer drops from CWD, the standard proteins in its body will just break down. However, prions can exist on the surface exposed to the sun for months. And as the body decays, plants will actually grow due to the nutrition in the area, pushing the prions upwards, and then possibly another deer happens by months later, eats those plants, exposing itself to prions. Once infected, human or otherwise, nothing can be done. Your coordination starts going along with your emotional control until finally, you just kind of slip into a coma and die. They can make you comfortable with medications, but that's pretty much it. But how does this relate to Wendigos? I would suggest there is an infection that is coming from a cave, possibly something as simple as maybe a virus that at some point infected a person and is able to exit out of the caves in the drier months, possibly hitching a ride onto bats, or maybe people entering areas of the caves that are now exposed due to them no longer being flooded from the summer months. Once exposed, they then leave out of the area with their infection that after, affecting their prions, begins inducing hallucinations which appear quite prevalent. It's as simple as a buildup of prions choking out the neurons and disrupting communication in the brain to induce these visual hallucinations and panic. This hypothesized virus would clearly need to affect the genetic coding, targeting the PRNP gene, causing these abnormal foldings. As a result of this would induce these more stable proteins, but what effects we could see that may support this are quite interesting. I believe that most proteins of the body would have to be afflicted with this illness. We see the cells of those changed are much more resistant to harm, and also just in general, these things are strong. They're pulling off arms. The process of changing involves horrific contortions and the hazing of the eyes. Emotional control is also completely going out the window as they are driven by aggression, which is not a complete unknown given brain damage actually tends to cause aggression. Along with this, we see the black blood vessels kind of creeping across the body, signaling to me that this is an infection rather than a supernatural possession. We just don't know what vector the person becomes infected by. But I would suggest it's probably a virus that resides within the cave systems nearby in this specific area that, for that specific time frame, is able to infect others. But what we do have is a delineation between Sapiens and Erectus, which is where the rare leap comes into play. Bigfoot has evidently been dealing with these things for quite some time, given he doesn't want to attack humans, but instead attacks infected humans. This appears to suggest that he is resistant to the actual infection itself, and this is simply because his genes and the location of the PRNP gene is an unknown to a virus that is not familiar with his genetics, because there is simply not enough interaction with the infected Wendigo humans versus his own genetics. It should also be known that the other primates have, for the most part, stronger immune systems than humanity. Stronger is a general sense. In a lot of ways, it really just means their immune systems are different. Like simian immunodeficiency virus, or SIV, will never really continue into AIDS in primates, whereas in humans, human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, given our CD4 and CD8 T cells and tissues that are present in us versus not present in, I guess chimpanzees is a good kind of point to have. That actually in humans will evolve into AIDS, and we get taken out by opportunistic infections. It just doesn't happen to other primates as often. So with this knowledge, we can assume that humans have some sort of tissue that allows for this prion disease to progress rapidly, inducing these hallucinations and changing their body. Now, it cannot be completely forgotten. Like you remember that one time I forgot there was a zombie head in the cooler of my Dawn of the Dead episode? Whoops. Anyways, Eye Patch Man was just ahead and he was clearly singing. However, how sure can we be that this wasn't just a hallucination, for Mr. Not So Nice Guy? If he's already infected given his close proximity to the Wendigos, it is possible he will begin exhibiting symptoms, and that's also the other side of this coin. Much like with prion disease standardly, timing is not always down to a science. It's not assured. Some people only display symptoms way later. Others decline rapidly after exposure. To me, given how Bigfoot is able to be in the presence of the Wendigo and humans begin hallucinating, says that this is much more of an infection from the cave system that's likely nearby, that's just been in the area probably forever. Once infected, hallucinations are then induced and their brains begin to suffer from the buildup of prions, which will begin altering their proteins of their bodies, further turning them into animals and decreasing their ability to rationalize because of the brain damage that has built up. All of this spurred on by the fact that the drier months have landed in the foothills, allowing for the exploration of caves and then viruses possibly to drift from those areas of the cave that were previously inaccessible for the entire year. This creates the dead month, which is really just a repeating pattern over and over again of areas being accessible. But anyhow, I want to thank you for watching. I want to hear what you guys think. Supernatural, or are there too many side clues indicating that this is really just an infection? Let me know down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, and channel links in the description. But speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. At the astronaut tier, we have Bananas Are Epic. Thank you, my man. Next up at the astrophysicist tier, we have Death's Dancer. Thank you as well, bro. And at the scientist tier, we have Frank Shaft Crank. I actually love electric cars and the anglerfish, which as always is a lie. Invictus Echo, Metric System, Official Texan, and Stutz. And the rest of my patrons, I do appreciate y'all's support. The channel cannot run functionally without it, and without you, so you are absolute ballers. But alright, that's gonna do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.